Hey there, fiber friends. Sarah here. This is my yarn lab. And today I just want to throw a very quick video together talking about a project disaster and what I'm going to do about it. So, for those of you who are new or didn't catch my last video, then you may or may not know I'm currently undergoing treatment for breast cancer. So, there's a link to the video where I go over my diagnosis there. This video will be more about the knitting, although I am going to blame some things on the chemotherapy. Today I am just a little over a week out for my first round of chemotherapy, and feeling not too bad. A little congested. That's a combination of a bit of a cold that I have, along with the havoc that the chemotherapy is wreaking on my nasal passage. But otherwise, good energy and good spirits. But last week there was some serious brain fog, and that may or may not have contributed to this knitting disaster. So here is the project in question. My brother-in-law and his wife are expecting a newborn boy any day now, and as all knitters do when there's a new baby in the family, you want to knit a sweater or a garment or a blanket, something for that new baby, right? Nothing is more joyful to the heart of a knitter than a tiny human to knit for. So that's what I embarked upon. The motivation behind this particular project was new baby, wanted to do a little cardigan, and part of my response to my cancer diagnosis was a overwhelming desire to make sure that I outlive my stash. So I've been deep diving these last couple of months, and that's what I did. I pulled out my stash and deep dived and found this yarn. So here's the 4 colors here, which I have had since probably 2017, 2016, maybe even 2015. So real deep old stash here. And what it is, and this is no longer a dyer that dyes, but this was, I would assume, I bought it at a yarn show in Alberta. So I would assume an Alberta based dyer, but Raven Twist. And this yarn is a DK weight Griffin was the base, 100% superwash merino. And I had actually 5 colors. There was a purple, but I omitted it. But I had these 4 solids or semi-solids. And if you're familiar with Canadiana at all, you'll recognize these colors as the Hudson Bay stripes colors. So I thought, wouldn't it be cute to knit this little boy a little Hudson Bay-esque sweater? Normally, those Hudson Bay stripe colors are on a white background, and so like this palette right here is like what we would call Hudson Bay blanket palette, and I'll throw a picture up. But I thought, and I wanted to use more stash, that I would go on a black palette. And I actually Googled a photo of this cardigan here as my inspiration. So, although these are DK weight, I did have 2 skeins of this Cascade 220 Superwash Merino in black in my stash, and thought, you know, together, this looks like a little cute Hudson Bay sweater for a boy or a girl. Just a cute Hudson Bay sweater on black background. I went into my Ravelry and saw what patterns I already had and pulled up the Elwood cardigan. So there it is there, by Jenny Weibe. So this pattern is circa 2017. Now I know that I did knit from this pattern, I think possibly for my nephew Jack is my guess. The sweater is no longer something that is in my possession. There is no Ravelry project page, but I'm fairly certain that I did knit from this pattern before. So I figured, here's a little very simple, I mean, her example even has it with stripes. So here is a sweater with stripes, the cardigan that I want to knit. It did not swatch, but I'm fairly confident with baby projects that if you're not going to swatch, just knit a size up and it will fit the baby at some point. So that's what I plan to do. So I went up to the 18-month size and cast on. The project is knit top down. You do your raglan increases, set your sleeves aside, work the body. I did 10 row stripes, and although those two yarns are a different gauge, it's not too overly noticeable. If anything, the fabric is just a tiny bit more open in the colored section than in the black, which is a little bit more dense, but it's not like you're having tight gauge, loose gauge, tight gauge, loose gauge. So they stripe together fine. So yeah, I knit the body. I followed the instructions for the 18-month exactly. I've got my sleeve stitches on hold. I went ahead and knit the button band because I like to do that before doing the sleeves. It's just a little bit less bulky when you're doing your button band. And it has like a little folded shawl collar. And then I picked up my stitches for the sleeves. And right away, like proportional to the size of this sweater, that is the skinniest little arm ever. Like, look at the width of this little sweater. Right? So there's the width of the sweater, and there is the skinniest little arm I've ever seen in my life. And I noticed it right away. I noticed it as soon as I finished the red stripe there. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, in this video, I said I was gonna blame Chemo brain fog on it, although realistically I had made it past the sleeve division prior to Chemo. And it's just too skinny, right? Like that sleeve is too skinny relative to the width. Like it's wide enough to get a child's arm through, no problem. But relative to the width of this sweater, I just can't get over the feeling that if I knit this sleeve full length, it's going to look ridiculous. Like these tiny little spaghetti arms on a otherwise normal size sweater. So yeah, so in my Chemo fog, the very little bit of knitting that I did last week was to knit another stripe in a bit. And then finally I said, screw that, and I cut my yarn off. And I'm going to pull my needles out because there's no way this is going to work. And I knit this sweater before, I'm certain of it, but there's no evidence of that. But that sleeve looks too skinny, right? So I'm sitting here looking on Ravelry, and I see that in photos that other people have knit of this sweater laid flat in the smaller sizes, the sleeves do look a little skinny relative to the pattern. And I double checked my stitch count. The stitch count is accurate in the body and in the sleeves. So it might just be what it is, that the way that the designer has written the pattern, the sleeves are a little bit skinny for my taste, and for just, and maybe it might be the horizontal stripes are making it visually worse than it is, but it just looks too skinny, right? So I decided not to proceed, right? For a minute last week, I thought, no, just keep knitting. I also thought, leave that sleeve alone, go to the other one. The pattern only has you for this size pick up 2 stitches under the underarm. You could go to this one and pick up 4 or even 6 to make it a bit bigger, but then it might be a bit funky. Yeah, just the sleeve cap is not. If I was in a better, less foggy brain space, what I would do is, I've got Elizabeth Zimmerman's books. She is was a spectacular knitter. You may have heard of her percentages system for sweaters. And so I would go and look at the stitch count that the body versus the sleeves have in this sweater versus her recommended percentages system. And I mean, but either way, if I want to solve this problem, I would have to rip all the way back to before the sleeve division in order to work more increases into these sleeves. And I'm just not interested in it. Like, I'm blaming cancer, but I have no desire to reknit from scratch this. I don't even care to frog out the yarn, which normally for me, every scrap of yarn is precious. And I don't even care to frog the yarn back out. So that baby is going to be born any minute. I need to knit something for that baby. And I know I don't need to, but I'm going to cast something else on. I'm going to just put this aside, right? Life is too short to knit things that are either going to be wrong or that you're not enjoying, you're not loving. So I'm putting this aside. I'm going to pick a different pattern that visually has less skinny sleeves. I still want to do the Hudson Bay blanket sweater. I've got more than enough of my contrast colors to do stripes again. Like, you barely use any to do one stripe of each color. I'm going to do it on the cream yarn this time and have it be the traditional Hudson Bay sweater. The other reason that I'm happy to just put this aside is that it's not singing to me or for me. So this one I'll get put aside. This will become a baby sweater. And because I need to have some knitting around for when I'm foggy from cancer treatment, I've cast on something super simple, which is a hat by Tori Knits NCY. I don't remember the name of the hat, but the important part is that it's just 8 inches right now of stockinette in the round, and then join a brim and then work a whole bunch more stockinette in the round. So I've got a lot of knitting that I can do on here that is 0% brain activity required. And we're gonna just put this aside. Maybe I'll frog the yarn out at some point. Maybe I will see if I can compost it. It's all 100% wool. So maybe I'll do a video later composting a sweater fail for you guys. But it's just visually something is not right about that sleeve, right? Is it just me? Anyways, it's been a while since I've had a knit go horribly askew. So I'm choosing to blame it on cancer treatment and chemotherapy. Realistically, it's just, this is what this pattern is, and I played a little bit fast and loose with gauge maybe, but it's not doing it for me. So anyways, that's all I've got for you right now. Just like I said, wanted to throw a quick little video out into the internet space, what I've been knitting on, how I've been feeling. Probably expect another sort of cancer story video sometime in the next week or so here. I'm also working on editing together a spinning video on some yarn that I spun before I embarked upon this breast cancer journey. So expect that one too. Feeling much better this week, minus this head cold. So should have plenty of time to get some editing done and get a little bit more content up here. That's all for now. Happy knitting, spinning, stitching, crocheting, sewing, whatever it is you do with fiber, because after all, this is the Yarn Lab. Bye-bye.